As he started to talk, there was a voice came out of the back of the crowd, and they said, "We can't hear you." So he spoke up a little louder. And there was a voice came, and he said, "We can't see you." And he thought, well, he looked around the barnyard, and there wasn't anything to stand on except for a pile of manure. So he climbed up on that pile of manure, which he didn't care to do, but it gave him visibility, and he could speak and see the crowd, and they could see him. And after he delivered what he thought was quite a campaign speech, he finished, and there was almost no applause at all. And he didn't know what to say, and he stood there. He asked, does anybody have any questions? One farmer said, you know, young man, I don't have any questions. He said, you know, we're all Democrats here. We vote Democrat every election here. We've never elected a Republican. And there's a good chance there's not one person here that's going to vote for you. But he said, I have to tell you, this has been a very strange day for all of us, because we not only have we never elected a Republican, we've never even seen one or heard one speak. So the guy didn't know quite what to say. And then he said, well, you know, this has been a very strange day for me as well. I said, well, what was strange for you? He said, well, this is the first time I ever delivered a Republican campaign speech while standing on a Democratic platform. No offense. I was a good friend of Don Driehaus, so I went to high school with him. You know, if you were asked the public in general what they think a police officer does every day, you'd probably get a number of answers. Some would say, well, they ride around, they give people citations, they take traffic accidents. The next one might say, well, they take care of people, they protect them. Others would say maybe they put criminals or bad people in jail. And all of those things are true. But the truth of the matter is, when someone is asked to take the oath of office as a law enforcement officer, he is given the power to deprive a person of their liberty, to require persons to do things they prefer not to do, and even take a person's life if necessary. These are awesome powers that must be protected at all costs. A simple definition of what a law enforcement officer actually does is to enforce the law and preserve the public peace. Police officers face death on a regular basis. It comes in many forms. In Oakland, California, it came in the form of 5 police officers being murdered in one day by a mad gunman with an automatic weapon. It started as a simple traffic stop. It could come the same as it did in Kansas when a deputy sheriff arrived at a residence to investigate a domestic violence call and was shot as he got out of his car and killed. Never had a chance to defend himself whatsoever. In Fort Worth, Texas, a young police officer on his way home from work stopped to assist a stranded female motorist with a flat tire, and he was struck and killed by a drunk driver. 3 weeks prior to that, he had been nominated by his department as Rookie of the Year. And last night, in the city of Lincoln Heights, there was a Woodlawn police officer who was ambushed by at least 2 and maybe more persons with what he described as long rifles, and it sounds more like an automatic weapon, where his patrol car was riddled with bullets, windows were shattered, and he was able to get away unharmed. He was lucky to get out of there with his life. Who would have thought that 10 years ago, something like that would happen in Hamilton County? I didn't think it would. I think Captain Neville could probably tell you some other stories about what goes on a daily basis in Cincinnati. But despite incidents like those I just mentioned, police officers across the country on a daily basis respond to duty and 24/7. And thank God they do so, because if it's not for law enforcement, if not for the police officer, who is going to stand between the law-abiding citizen and the criminals in our society? I guarantee you, it's not going to be the bleeding hearts that we hear from all the time. These officers are all special persons, special in the same way a member of our armed forces who goes off to a foreign land to protect and defend our country is a special person. Several months ago, I received a telephone call from a person who failed to identify himself, and he was complaining because there was a young soldier's body being escorted back from Iraq, and there was a long procession of police cars with the hearse and the family. And he was unhappy because the police officers would not allow him to cross through the intersection, and he thought that was an overkill and a show. He couldn't understand why so many police officers and other people were in a procession, and it made him very unhappy. I won't tell you what I wanted to tell him, but I did say that we consider that soldier to be a special person who had given his life for all of us, and he was entitled to be honored in his last trip home. And we would do the same thing the next time, regardless of how loud he complained. When a police officer is killed or seriously injured in the line of duty, there are always a certain few who will ask, why make such a big deal when a police officer is killed or injured? The answer to that question was best given by Cincinnati Police Chaplain Reverend Mark Pruden at a funeral for two Cincinnati officers who were killed several years ago. I quote, "Killing a cop fractures the very foundation upon which our society is built. It rips apart the very basic fabric from which our society is made. Killing a cop does not just break the law. Killing a cop demonstrates the epitome of contempt for the God who created the world and the laws he provided. That is why an entire community grieves when a cop is killed or seriously injured. Tonight we are honoring two police officers, Marshal Henry Knapp, who was killed on March the 22nd, 1926. And I have to say that I was not there. Some people may think I was, but I was not. And Lieutenant David Ponner, who was shot and seriously wounded on July the 12th, 2006. In closing, just let me say that these are special people who paid a price for doing what police officers take an oath to do, and that is to simply enforce the law and preserve the public peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Hoffbauer. We certainly appreciate those encouraging words. They mean a lot at this ceremony. Also like to thank you for passing up steak and beer night at the FOP Lodge, along with Lieutenant. I know you guys would have liked to have been there, but and as many of these guys, you came here instead, and we certainly appreciate that. Nobody wants to pass up their steak and beer night, do they? We appreciate that. One other thing before we get into the actual ceremony, I have been remiss. I kind of jumped over a thing or two, and I want to make sure that you know everyone at the two tables. Everybody didn't speak. To my left is our council, village officials, Mr. Youngblood, Councilman Youngblood, you heard speak. Mr. Wickman is not able to make it. And the reason I want to make sure I do this because the next lady I got to go home with, if I don't introduce her, there could be some problems later on this evening, but nevertheless. My wife, Ann Pillow, Councilman Pillow, Councilman Lisa Meir, Councilwoman, sorry, Councilman Ronnie Pugh, Councilman Jason Fry, our village clerk, Margaret Ann Dozier, and our village solicitor, Mr. Robert Kelly. To my right, Colonel Ray Hoffbauer, Chief Thomas Von Lardy, guest of honor, Mr. David Ponner and his wife, Kathy. I had to ask somebody what Kathy's name was because all I've ever known was Kat. Miss Jimmy Lee Grigsby Thomas is with us tonight on behalf of the Knapp family and her husband, Mr. Vernon Thomas, a former council member here at the Village of Addiston as well. As you heard, Reverend Pittman from the First Baptist Church here in Addiston, well with our administrative secretary, Miss Aaron Lowry. At this time, we are going to ask that Colonel Hoffbauer, along with Chief Von Lardy, Lieutenant Dave Ponner and his wife, Kat, if you would please come to the front of the podium, please. We would also ask the family members of Lieutenant Ponner, please come up as well. We would now ask that Sergeant Dorian LaCourse come forward. We have received from the American Police Hall of Fame Law Enforcement Purple Heart Award for the line of duty injury. This will certify that David W. Ponner of the Addiston, Ohio Police Department has been elected to the Police Legion of the Purple Heart in recognition of grievous injury sustained while in the performance of duties as a law enforcement officer, and is hereby authorized to wear the official medal and service bar issued by the American Police Hall of Fame. David, this is your plaque. We're going to ask that his wife, Kat, come forth, please. And if you would be so kind, Chief, if you would help me out here. Make sure it just thanks, Don. Okay. If you would give these to Kat so she can pin this right above his left name, or right on the right. Yes, on the right side. Dave's wife, Kat, will now give him the bar. Thank you. We will ask Chief Von Lardy to put the service pin on Lieutenant. Find somewhere. And Colonel, if you would. Purple Heart, self. Lieutenant Ponner, in appreciation, humble appreciation for your service to our village and